Nick, I would like to be playing the same game, but in another sense, I want to be playing very different games. Do you have any games for me?
Yeah. What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We are the Brothers Murph, and that's right. Today we're going to talk about asymmetric games.
Yes.
So an asymmetric game is a game where most of the people, sometimes it's only one person versus everyone else, but basically different people are going to be playing very different games. This can take the place of, like, we have different powers.
Yeah, different
we have
factions.
different factions. We have different things like that. Sometimes it's almost like you're literally playing a whole different game than the other one.
Different path to victory.
Yeah, asymmetric games are always very interesting because seeing how things interact is very, very interesting. So we're going to go over our top 10 asymmetric games.
Voyages Marco Polo is number 10. This is a fantastic dice worker placement kind of game. You're going to be using dice to go to different actions and stuff, but everyone essentially is going to get a game-breaking level power. It's one of those ones where you'll simultaneously be jealous of the powers that someone else has because it seems like way overpowered, but then they're going to turn around and look at you and be like, no, but you can break all these rules this way. And I think that's something that's really fun about this game. This can be a very kind of tight resource game where you are traveling around, kind of caravanning to different cities, but the costs of travel are high. You have to have a lot of camels and money and things like that to be getting into different cities, which are going to have different actions you can do. There's contract fulfillment that you're working on, and stuff like that. And so it's one of those games that it can be really, again, resource tight. But I love having this like game-breaking ability, this really strong thing that only I can do that might mitigate the dice that I use and things like that. And I think that's a cool thing. Is like taking a look at your ability and figuring out a pathway from there. Okay, I want to try to get to these cities. I want to try to get these things done, complete these contracts, get these resources, and kind of using your player ability as a blueprint from which to build your plan, I think is really exciting and really kind of, again, varied and different every time. Each power gives you something really cool to do and maybe a different way to focus in the game, so it makes this game kind of really replayable.
Number 9 is going to be Wonderland's War. Wonderland's War is kind of interesting. There'll be a couple other games on this list where you start off asymmetric, but then you kind of get more and more and more asymmetric as the game goes along. This is a game set in Wonderland, France. No, Wonderland with Alice in Wonderland and all that kind of stuff, the Mad Hatter and the Jabberwock and all that kind of stuff. And this is a game where everyone's going a little crazier than usual, and everyone is fighting over the various parts of Wonderland, like the Red Keep and all this different kind of stuff. And it's a big bag building game. It's kind of like Battle Quacks of Quedlinburg is what they originally would say about it. And that's pretty accurate. So the game is broken down into basically 2 different acts. Every round is broken down into 2 different acts. You have kind of the tea party phase where you're kind of going around this big old mad tea party. And that's where you're getting followers. You're kind of putting stuff out into the various areas. You're getting new Wonderlandians, you're getting all these different kinds of things. And then the second half of each round is you're going to go from place to place in Wonderland, and you're going to be battling. And how you're battling is you're pulling chips out of this bag, and those chips will be doing certain things. Sometimes they're just straight up strength, but other times you're pulling out certain things for your character. So if you're playing like the Mad Hatter, there are going to be certain abilities that you have that, again, make you asymmetric and make you different. But then on top of that, as you're gaining these followers, you're putting them into your bag, and these followers will be doing different stuff. They have all sorts of different abilities. And again, it's kind of like Quacks of Quedlinburg, where each follower will have a bunch of different abilities it can have in the game. So each game, you can be switching those things out. Not to mention, there's all these other Wonderlandians like Humpty Dumpty and stuff, and you can get them as followers and put them in your bag. So as the game is going on, you're getting more and more asymmetric. It's really, really fun. And so each of these little areas you're battling, pulling stuff out, you can eventually bust by getting too much madness. And then you're going to get points for winning a certain area. And then you're kind of going all the way through, and you're going to do that like 3 different times. It's super fun from top to bottom in terms of like just art, production value, fun gameplay. This game is an absolute top tier game. It's absolutely great, and it's got some great asymmetry.
We'd be remiss if we didn't include Root on this list. Of course, this could be much, much higher. We just don't have as much experience as other players do with this game. But obviously, if you're talking asymmetric games, Root is a fantastic pick. This is a war-style game where we are different woodland creatures battling over the forest. We're trying to take over the forest for ourselves. And every faction that you play as is wildly different than the other one. So you have in the base game, you have the Marquita cat, who is kind of they're the fat cats. They're the ones already in charge. They have the most kind of industry. They're sort of running the forest at the start of the game. And you kind of want to build up these industries, these kind of sawmills and various recruitment centers and stuff to kind of generate more and more points. You have the Erie Dynasty, these birds that sort of have like a programming way of working where you have to follow kind of your decree. You have to say, I'm going to move into these types of clearings, I'm going to attack in those types of clearings, I'm going to build in these types of clearings and stuff. And if you ever can't follow your decree, you fall into turmoil and you kind of have to like reset to a degree. You have the Woodland Alliance, who are, you know, the underdogs, and they're trying to spread outrage and stuff, and then kind of revolt and take over clearings and stuff and kind of build up their army from there. And you have the Vagabond, who's not in the clearings, but sort of in the forest and helping out other factions in their way, but of course gaining their own victory points along that. There are a bunch of expansions and new and different factions as well. And that's what's really cool about this game is like every character you play is effectively a different mini game, and you're all trying to work toward the goal of getting to 30 points first. So it's just something that has tons and tons of depth and room to explore as you kind of learn one faction, get good at that faction, and then maybe move on to the next faction, figure out which ones you like, which kind of play styles are required. There's just so much stuff to explore in a really cool kind of war style game with this interesting kind of cutesy art. So I think it makes it more approachable, which I think is another kind of really brilliant stroke that Root has pulled off.
Number 7 is going to be Tag Team. This is a really, really interesting game. It's a two-player kind of duel game, but it's about tag team. So you are going to have you and your character, basically each person is going to have two characters, and those two characters are going to be very, very different from each other. So I'll have this character and this character, their little tag team, and then Mike would have this character and their little tag team. And this is kind of like war, and kind of like, it's all about kind of memorizing the other person's sequence. It's kind of a sequence building game where each basically turn you're going to be flipping over a card, and that card is going to have one of your characters do something. A lot of times attack. All the characters though work very differently. They have different amount of health. They have different things that they do. And again, you have two of them. So you have two levels of asymmetry, and then your opponent also has two completely different characters. And each of those characters are going to have a deck of cards, and you're going to be flipping them over, and then those two cards are going to kind of go against each other. And again, a lot of times your two things are going to be battling. And so you're going through the thing, but as the game progresses, you're going to be adding in cards to this deck. And so you're constantly trying to counteract what your opponent is doing. So if you're like, oh, I remember that the third card is that character's really big hit. Like, they're really going to hit me hard on the third card. So I now am going to put a really big defense card as my third card. So that now next time we're doing this, boom, I get to block that big attack. But then your opponent might counter with something else to counter one of your cards. And so you're kind of building out your sequence of cards and then kind of playing them out, and you're basically trying to knock out each other's characters. It's super, super cool. This game is just really fun because you just grab two characters at random, see how they match up. Sometimes they match up in a really weird, funky way. Sometimes they match up really well, and you just go up against an opponent. This is a game that I assume they will expand the ever-loving bejesus out of, because they can just add more and more and more characters. It's a really, really fun game, and every single game is going to be a little bit different because you're going to have a different matchup of characters.
Next up is going to be Hegemony, Lead Your Class to Victory. So this is a game where you are all different classes. You have the working class, the middle class, the capitalist class, and then the state, the government. and you are trying to make sure that your people are going to get ahead. And you're going to have different ways of doing this. So, for example, the capitalist class is going to be in charge of providing jobs, essentially, for people. They're going to want to create jobs and stuff, which are then going to be occupied by members of the working and middle class. They have their workers that can go on to these things. And you're going to be making money every time you essentially run one of your businesses. But of course, you have wages you got to pay to those other people. So you're trying to figure out that balance of like, how many businesses to have open and running? You know, how much are you paying your people? Because that's something that the other classes can basically strike for and try to get better wages. There's things you can vote on, essentially, to increase the minimum wage, decrease the minimum wage. So me as a capitalist, of course, I want that to be as low as possible because I need my businesses to be profitable. And if I have a bunch of businesses and a bunch of them aren't, you know, making me money, then it doesn't really make sense for me. So if you're the working class, you, of course, need jobs. You need to, you know, take care of your people. You need to go out and strike and stuff and force better conditions for your people as you're kind of bringing in new workers and stuff and getting them into the workforce. The middle class has sort of got a foot in both the capitalist and the working class side, so they can do some businesses and stuff and also go work those businesses. Then if you're the state, you are basically trying to get things, you know, moved in such a way that you're kind of making everybody happy. That's how you kind of generate your points. So it's a really interesting game where we each have, you know, a different way to generate our points and stuff like that. We have this kind of shared infrastructure that we're all contributing to and working toward, but we have different, you know, different needs, different things that we want to have happen. And those things are going to find themselves at odds with each other. It's a really interesting game. Nick and I got to play this for the first time about a month ago. Really fascinating, interesting experience. Really, ultimately a Euro game. If you're not familiar, haven't played it for yourself, but it's got this kind of asymmetric, you know, it puts you in the feet of these different kind of classes within these structures, and kind of having to make decisions that are selfish. And it really kind of makes you think about the world at large and stuff, which is kind of the point of this game. I think it does a really great job, and it's a really fun, solid game as well.
Next up is going to be Star Wars Rebellion. Star Wars Rebellion is Star Wars in a box. It's not gonna be the last in a box game we talk about. We'll talk about another one based off of Lord of the Rings later. But nonetheless, Star Wars Rebellion is Star Wars in a box. This is basically where you and an opponent get to tell your own version of the Star Wars story. One side is going to be the Rebel Alliance. One side is going to be the Empire. The Empire is trying to find the Rebel Alliance's base, but the base could be kind of anywhere because the Rebel Alliance gets to choose where they want to put it. You know, it could be on Tatooine. It could be on Coruscant. It could be on all these different places. And you, at the beginning of the game, are going to pick where it is, and then you're basically trying to outlast the Empire. The Empire basically is going to be searching for this planet. And what you basically need to do is the Empire needs to find the planet and then basically destroy the planet. And so as the Rebel Alliance, you don't want to like beef up the planet too much because then it's kind of obvious where you need to, it's a constant game of bluffing where you're playing completely different games because the Rebel Alliance is like bluffing and trying, like, I'm going to build up over here and maybe make them think that this is it. And then I'm going to beef up over here and kind of, I'm going to leave the actual base like really barren. And that's kind of scary. But the thing is the Empire, every round is going to be getting cards from the planets. All the planets have a card. You obviously have the card where your base is. They'll be flipping over cards, basically ruling out certain parts on the board, but you as the Rebel Alliance don't know what they know. So sometimes you're like, I'm building up over here, and they have the card going like, oh, I know that planet isn't it because I already know that that planet is out of contention for it. It's really, really interesting. This game always comes down to the wire for every time I've played it. It's just so interesting. But again, you're playing really, really different games. And it's just, gosh, it's just so fun. It really is Star Wars in a box, but you get to tell your own version. Mike played one where like Leia turned to the dark side, C-3PO got a lightsaber, like all this different stuff. It's like, I love games like this where like, they're like, here's this universe, and this universe that you know very, very, very well, but you just get to play how you want in here. You can kind of tell the story that you want to tell, do the things that you want to do. And like I said, you're going to be very different from each other because the two sides are opposing. So of course they're different. It's just so good.
Next up is going to be Spirit Island. This is a game where you are going to be playing as a spirit as you are trying to protect the native people of an island from these invaders that are sort of coming onto the island, building up their cities in a semi-programmed kind of way. And you're going to be doing this by, taking out these invaders and stuff, generating fear, triggering your abilities. And every spirit is going to be quite different. They're going to have their own kind of like starting cards, their own kind of flavor. And then there are these player boards that have these different special actions that really kind of bring each spirit's style to the fore. So this is a really cool cooperative game where the way you kind of bounce and balance the powers and abilities of the different spirits in play. This also works great solo, as by the way, it's just a singular spirit or two-handed. But yeah, how you kind of like work each other's powers off each other. Some spirits are more defensive, and they're going to kind of do area of effect stuff, and they're going to take slower actions, which are going to happen after the invaders kind of come in. There's other ones that are kind of quick and offensive. They're going to hit harder. They're going to do kind of more, outright damage and things that kind of more showy in that way. And not only is there just a ton to explore just within each spirit themselves, but like I said, as you start to pair them with other spirits or have different groupings in a 3 or 4 player game, the way that you kind of make everyone's abilities work together is like another level of like the fascinating puzzle. It's super duper cool. Just a really like good high stakes cooperative game where, it feels really kind of insurmountable as like these invaders keep coming, keep spreading out, keep building. But as you kind of generate more and more fear, it becomes a little easier to eradicate them essentially. You can take out their cities and towns and then the people and stuff, but as you generate more fear, it's easier to get them to kind of finally run away to win the game. It's really, really cool, awesome art. And again, with the expansions and stuff, there's just a ton of content to explore.
Number 3 is going to be Planet Unknown. And this is another one that's kind of interesting because you can kind of choose how asymmetric you want this game to be. You can have this game be not asymmetric at all. This is a game where you're going to be terraforming a planet, and the game is going to base around having the planet that you're terraforming and then your own little, I think they're called corporations in the game, but basically your own little thing, and those are all these tracks that you're going to be bumping up. And as you bump up those tracks, they're going to combo into all these big crazy combo wombos where you'll move this one up, that then allows you to move this track up, that then allows you to put this thing out on the planet and all this different kind of stuff. And it's this big simultaneous game. I keep wanting to say asynchronous, simultaneous game where there's a big lazy Susan, and whoever's the active player will get to turn the lazy Susan to where they want it to be pointing towards them, which is going to be a certain kind of tile that they want. And then everyone will get to take a tile that's facing them with this lazy Susan. So it's a very simultaneous game, very little downtime. It's very fun. But where the asymmetry comes in is in 2 different ways. And again, you can play this as asymmetric as you possibly want. You can have it where everyone's on the same planet and everyone has the same powers. Boom, that's not asymmetric at all. You can have it where everyone's on a different planet, or maybe even some people are on a different planet and then everyone else is on the same planet and everyone has the same kind of corporation. Or you can have it where everyone has a different corporation but everyone has the same planet. Or you can be on, everyone has a different planet, everyone has a different corporation, and it's completely asymmetric. You can really choose how you want. You can be like, hey, it's your first time playing this. How about you're just on the base planet, you kind of just have the base powers. Cool, you can go ahead and play that. I'm gonna play on this big crazy planet and have this big crazy powers. The powers aren't necessarily more strong than the other ones, they're just different. And so this is a really cool game because you get to choose how asymmetric you actually want it to be. And I really, really love that. Playing all the planets is very, very interesting. Playing all the different corporations is very, very interesting. It's just such a good game with a great gimmick with that lazy Susan. It's really, really wonderful. I love this game, and I really like that you get to choose how asymmetric you want it to be.
Number 2 is going to be War of the Ring. This is the Lord of the Rings in a box game. So this is a game where you are going to be either the free people, you're going to be the Fellowship, or you're going to be Sauron and their forces, and you are warring for Middle Earth. You are trying to take over once and for all if you're Sauron. If you're the free people, you're trying to finally banish Sauron, destroy the ring, hopefully, or try to get a military victory. One thing I really like about this game is the fan service to the books. The cards and stuff are all referencing, you know, specific events and moments from the books. And the ability to have the story that we know and love, the map, Middle Earth, the locations that we're familiar with, but be able to essentially write new stories within that, because you can have the Fellowship break apart in different groupings and stuff, and it doesn't have to be the way that it was in the movies and books. You can have it be that Legolas is there at the very end, you know, on Mount Doom, trying to get rid of the ring and stuff. This also feels very thematic in that if you are the free people, you are vastly outnumbered militarily. Sauron can basically generate infinite troops and stuff. They can always kind of come back and regenerate. The free people, it's going to be much more difficult to obtain military victories. Sauron, I think, has to get to 10 military victory points or corrupt Frodo and you know, get him turned against his compatriots. If you're the free people, you only have to get 4 military victory points, but it's going to be a much taller task. So you're trying to balance, like, where do I, you know, what strongholds do I try to protect as the free people? As I'm trying to sneak Frodo closer and closer to Mount Doom, how do I keep them kind of out of sight, essentially, from like the, you know, the wandering eye? And I really enjoy that because that feels thematic. Like Sauron is a representative of this overwhelming evil force kind of, you know, pounding down upon you, and you only have this like limited group of resistance fighters, and how you allocate those resources, how you decide, you know, where you decide to have your Helm's Deep moment, you know, your Minas Tirith moment, your big stand, is really kind of vitally important and stuff. And the cool thing is that could happen in the places where it happens in the book, or it could happen in the Shire. I don't know, anywhere. Like that is what's really, really cool. The pure good versus evil, what makes those books and movies so special is put right into the center of this game, and you get right in the middle of it from whatever perspective you're on. And it's a really cool, unique experience no matter which side you're playing as.
Number 1 is going to be the Imperium games. We'll say Imperium Horizons, but Imperium Legends, Classic. You can kind of even throw Star Trek Captain's Chair in there because it's based off the same system. But my favorite is Imperium, Imperium Horizons specifically. This is a game that kind of is understandably asymmetric because this is a game where you are taking on a nation. You could be like Japan, you could be like the Magyars, you could even be like Martians. There's all these different nations in the game, the Celts, the Romans, all this different kind of stuff, the Zulu, all this different kinds of things. And you're choosing a nation, and that nation is going to be very different than every other nation in the game, which makes sense. This is a big card-driven game and a kind of deck-building game where you're trying to go through your deck as fast as possible because, again, you're living out this nation, which means you're kind of living through their history. So you're basically going to have these kind of basic cards that you have, but there's other cards, these development cards and these kind of, I can't remember, like nation cards, I think they're called. But basically, as you go through your deck, you're going to be getting more and more of these cards. These cards are going to be more powerful, and they're going to be thematically things that are happening in that nation. And you are going through your deck, playing out these various cards. These cards might be like regions that you have. They might be like technologies that you have, all this different kind of stuff. But like I said, every single nation is very different. There is a whole array of like common cards that are there, like, you know, agriculture and different things that kind of everyone had or everyone was able to discover. So there's also common cards, and those are going to be the same in every game and can be bought by people throughout the game. But the way your nation plays is really very, very different than every other one. Some are more peaceful, some are more aggressive, some are very complicated, some are pretty straightforward. They're all over the place because, again, it makes sense. Like, you know, the Japanese are not going to be the same as like the Inuit, right? Like they're on whole different parts of the planet, you know, and different people. And so it makes sense that like as you're going through this history, you're going to be playing a game that's very different as well. Again, the mechanics of the game are the same, but like kind of how you end up having to go about your strategy and stuff is very, very different. I love these games because I really just like taking most recently I was like, I'm just going to grab a thing at random. It happened to be the Celts, and I played a couple games as the Celts. So much fun, so great. I grabbed another one. Okay, now it's this one. Okay, I'll play a couple games as them. It's just so enjoyable to do that. I really enjoy exploring these various nations and seeing kind of how they tick. It's just so good. This is one of those games that like I hope they expand forever. I don't know if they're going to do any more. They've already done 3 of them. But I really hope they just do so many more. There's so many nations out there, so much history in the world, and I really want to play with all of it.
So those are 10 games we love that have some asymmetry to them.
Yeah, a little bit.
There are, of course, many more out there. So what we want to know is from you, what are your favorites? Put those in the comments below. What are the ones that, like, just give you that good hit of, like, I'm doing this cool thing that no one else is doing? Because there's obviously a whole ton of them out there. Get those in the comments below. Let us know what you think about our picks, and we'll see you in the next top 10.
Bye, everybody.